Hi everybody. Well, I am not a good flyer. I am not a good flyer. Now, I have calmed down a lot because I fly a lot. So I am no longer closing my eyes and gripping the seats when I'm flying. But I am kind of watching everywhere going, are we up? Are we up? Are we up? When we're taking off. That kind of guy. But I just watched that Air India crash, and it is freaking me out a bit. So unless you've been under a rock, you've probably seen in the news 261 people, including passengers and crew, recently, 2 days ago, passed away in a Dreamliner Boeing crash in India. And it's such a, there are so many theories going on about what happened, because the Dreamliner is a very powerful plane. It is also a very reliable plane. It is like a workhorse in the industry. It is not like the Max 8 and the problems they had with that. But this plane is well known for how good it handles. In fact, this is the first ever total loss of this type of aircraft, the Dreamliner-8. Well, that is even scarier. And so I've been deep diving into all these news outlets and experts, as well as pilots who on YouTube are, actual 787 pilots, and they have their own YouTube channels. And of course, they have covered this and are coming up with theories of what happened. And I'm going to tell you, none of the theories make it any easier on me. First of all, I gotta say condolences to everybody involved. There was a Canadian citizen on board. There was 80-some British citizens, obviously Indian passengers. It's a horrible, horrible incident. And the only thing when you watch that video of the plane taking off down the runway, and from the time it literally lifts off, it's less than 60 seconds before it crashes into a huge, horrible fireball. So now the pilots all knew what was happening, but at one point the passengers had to know what's happening. And how many passengers are out there, like I do sometimes, and I stick my phone in the window and I film takeoff. And you're filming takeoff and you notice, why are we going lower? Why are the buildings getting closer? And then the reality sits in and you start looking out the window and you realize there's no flat land anywhere. There's just buildings. And this isn't going to end well. Now, the biggest question that people are asking, first of all, was it a bird strike like we had with the Miracle in the Hudson? Where, Captain Sully, miraculously landed the plane on the Hudson. Well, there's no loud bangs that come in the video. There's no flashes out of the engines. And for both engines to be hit with this type of plane and conk out like that, very, almost a billion to one chance that this would happen. Now, other things are, the landing gear was still down. Now, that makes sense if the pilots realize that they're not going to be able to climb, because you want landing gear to try and cushion the blow when you hit the ground. That all makes sense, right? But there was not even an attempt to retract the landing gear from the looks of the videos or the analysis so far, which either means they knew they were in trouble or there was a mechanical failure and the landing gear didn't go down. The funny kind of situation about this whole thing is that should not bother this plane. That should not bother the power of this plane. This plane is capable of taking off with one engine and the landing gear down. It is that powerful. It is that strong. There is no issue there. So there's got to be another whole issue. Another thing that they're talking about is the position of the flaps. That it looks like the flaps were not in a takeoff position to give the, a lift, the full lift to the plane. You take off, you get to a certain point, the landing gear goes up, you get drop off the wind drag, make yourself as most aerodynamic as possible, you hit the power, you angle up, and boom, you go up. And now the flaps in the front are positioning you to lift those wings up in the air. Now, the hotter the day, the harder that is. And the faster you need to be going. And there's also some controversy about whether or not they took off from the full runway or half runway. But you can see when you watch the actual film footage that it used all of the runway that it had left. Whether it took off halfway or the full runway or not is another story. But you can see the dust fly up, when it hits like the dirt area as the plane takes off. It's not on cement at that point. So it used whatever space they had. Now, if the flaps are in the wrong position for takeoff, and there's a whole checklist to do, and this isn't just, bring out the book and check off a tick mark. These are actually computer controlled checks that make you go through 2 different checks to make sure the flaps are open. You can tell I've been studying a lot of this during the last few days. This has been utterly terrifying to me as a frequent flyer. So in order for them to have tried to take off with the flaps in the incorrect position, apparently there would have been warnings and flashes and big lights in front. Like the whole cockpit would have been like a disco with warning lights. And the pilots would have had to completely ignore it. So if it's not a bird strike, and it's not the flaps are in the wrong position, and it's not the landing gear was in the wrong position, what caused the plane to not have any lift? It obviously had power because it made it all the way down to the runway. It was doing 171 knots when it did it. The plane lifted into the air. It just lost its lift completely. It no longer made any kind of lift. Now, at that point, if the flaps are in the wrong position and the landing gear is still down and it's a hot day, that's the issue. There's some problems. But how did they get into that position? And I did see one pilot, he's been a captain for numerous years, break down whether it's a bird strike, whether it's a lift problem, whether it's an engine problem, etc. And one thing that he kind of noticed that he thinks may have happened is that after they take off, within the first 5 seconds of takeoff, the co-pilot will yell out, we have lifting speed. We've made our speed that we need to. At that point, the pilot yells, retract landing gear. Now, what he thinks may have happened is that the co-pilot, instead of hitting the retract landing gear lever, he hit the flaps. So that meant the landing gear stayed in position and the flaps moved to the wrong position, which no longer gave the plane lift and also gave it more drag. Right at the crucial point where it's the heaviest the plane's ever going to be, it's full of fuel, it's got everybody on board, it's never going to be heavier, it's never going to be slower than it is right now. And you can see, you can tell the pilot tries to nose up that plane as much as he can. Now, if you think all this is happening within 40 to 50 seconds. Now, the pilot's he's going zoom, and all of a sudden the plane goes kind of like a little, like this. And he realizes, hey, we're not climbing anymore. What's going on? And he only has 30 seconds to figure it out. And actually, probably within 5 to 10 seconds of realizing that that problem is occurring, whether they found out, oh, the flaps are in the wrong position and the landing gear steered, that's the problem, it was already too late. Even if they tried to fix both of those things, it would not have mattered. The plane had already lost its thrust, lost its lift, and was already on its way down. Now, had it been 2,000 feet in the air instead of 600 feet in the air, maybe they could have nosed down, picked up speed, and gone up. But they were too shallow when this happened. So that pilot kind of made sense that way. It's still a theory. They don't know, but they have recovered the black box. And the miracle, seat 11A, an emergency exit window seat on the left-hand side of the plane. 1 passenger survived. 261 passengers and crew died. 1 passenger survived, as well as many on the ground were injured and even passed away. And he cannot explain how he survived. Nobody can explain how he survived. Like, the odds are insurmountable that he was able to survive. But he has children at home, and I'm sure they're thanking their lucky stars that this miracle upon miracles happened. Although, in other sad news, as far as his family is concerned, his brother was on the plane as well. It's a heartbreaking story. All these people just flying home or flying on vacation, and something happened. Like I said, I fly so often, and I've got it under control. But I guarantee you, my next flight, heading to California, and Washington, I'm going to be holding on a little tighter to those armrests on the plane, at least for a little while.